It's time to feel what you've been bottling up. Life in rural America isn't easy. The long hours, the constant pressures, the demands of the land, livestock, and family, it all takes a toll. We're tough and we've got grit, but somewhere along the way, toughness started meaning bottling up emotions and powering through. But here's the truth. That strategy, it's not working and it's poisoning us. Maybe you've noticed and maybe you haven't, but the numbers don't lie. We're breaking down and it's showing up in our bodies, our relationships, and in the rising suicide rates in agriculture. You don't have to carry any of it alone. There's another way. If you're ready to stop being weighed down and start moving forward, my one-on-one good movement guidance is now open. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more and see if one-on-one guidance could be for you.
I'll carry you, you carry me, we'll help each other through it. Come on and see, good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. Last year at the time I'm recording this, if you're listening in the future, it may not be last year. I digress. Anyway, during the final meeting of the 2023 Enneagram cohort led by Suzanne Stabile, Suzanne was teaching on what she refers to as the 4 mantras, which are show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't get attached to the results. While she was teaching on pay attention and talking about the importance of awareness and being present, I made a note in my notebook. It says, children are super aware and we dismiss it out of them, so they lose it as adults. What prompted that thought and that note was reflecting back on a time I'd spent with the kids out in the pasture. We were riding horses to move cows or something, I don't know. We were horseback. This time that I'm thinking of specifically was a time that our boy was like, "Hey mom, there's a wild onion. There's a wild onion. There's a wild onion." And he continued pointing out all the wild onions until the onions overcame him. And pretty soon I look back and he is off his horse picking wild onions. When I saw him on the ground picking wild onions, I quickly reminded him that we had work to do and he was burning daylight. That was the picture that came to my mind immediately as Suzanne was talking about paying attention and the importance of awareness and being present. But there are many, many other stories I could share where I poo-pooed the kids pointing out something to me. Children are naturally mindful. They live in the moment. They notice every little detail. But somewhere along the way, we lose that. And today, I want to talk about how and why that happens and how we can reclaim that gift of awareness for ourselves and promote, not poo-poo it with our kids. We'll explore how children's innate awareness can inspire our own mindfulness practice, how we can foster that in our kids, and some simple steps to reconnect with the present moment as adult humans. Kids are, like I said, naturally mindful. They are, in general, present in the moment. They are present to their experiences. Their senses are alive. Do you see that? Oh, this sweater feels itchy. Oh, that smells like stuff like that. And They're curious about everything. I mean, I don't know a mom or a dad who at some point has been overwhelmed at the volume of questions that come in from their children. I mean, there's a time frame in there. It seems like starting at around age 3 through maybe like age 5 or 6, where there's just an overwhelming amount of questions coming in. Why is the sky blue? What's that sound? How do birds fly? Why is that truck green? Why is this that? Or, like questions that maybe we don't actually have the answers to, but they're asking them. They're fully present, they're curious, and they are open to wonder without judgment. I mean, that kind of speaks to their curiosity, but they are open to seeing and taking in new information without placing a judgment on it or putting it into this category or that category. It just is. And they live in this world of wonder. And as adults, we unintentionally dismiss their curiosity. Like I told Trip, we're burning daylight, things like that. We say, we don't have time for that. Stop asking questions. Oh my gosh, how many more questions are you going to ask? Over time, kids learn that being aware isn't valued, so they tune it out. And as adults, I mean, we were kids once, and I'm sure that our parents said the same things to us. And now we've tuned it out too. We've tuned out our awareness. We've tuned out our mindfulness. Again, some of the ways that I have seen that I do this with my kids are, let's hurry up. It's time to go. We got work to do. We're burning daylight. And I know that I'm not doing them any favors. So where does this go awry? Like when we grow up, why is this happening? Why are we losing this? Why are we adults dismissing and poo-pooing the awareness and mindfulness out of our kids? Well, for one thing, in this culture that we live in, we place far more value on productivity versus presence. It's more important for you to be productive than it is for you to be present. We're taught to focus on doing and not being. So it's really no wonder that we lose our sense of awe and we lose that mindfulness. We're kind of mindless. The social messaging is efficiency above all else. We're rewarded for our efficiency, not for noticing the details. A lot of times when I am talking about rest or noticing what we're feeling in our body or emotions, I'll get a little pushback and they'll be like, well, that's not productive. And to that, I want to say, yeah, it is productive. Just because it isn't what culture tells us is productive, being mindful of those things, that you need rest, that you have feelings, all of those things, that's productive. It just is. We've learned to push down these emotions and not notice things to avoid pain and be more productive. But in doing that, we dull our sensitivity to everything else, including joy. Back in episode 43, when we talked about how you cannot suppress one emotion without suppressing them all, that's what we're talking about here. We do all of these things for the sake of productivity, but we dull our sensitivity to everything else. Like Tom and I don't remember which episode it was. It was one of our more recent ones where Tom was on, and we were talking about the speed of commerce, or Tom had brought up the speed of commerce. And we see this actual thing, like on the ranch, we know slow is smooth and smooth is fast. But at the end of the day, there's still this nagging little voice that says, you have to get this done because these cattle have to be here at this time, at this place, because this is a business and da 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 da. It's speed of commerce and it's cultural. And so even if we grew up with parents who promoted mindfulness, we're still subjected to a culture that says productivity over presence. So how can we reclaim our awareness and be more mindful? First of all, we can contact our inner child and be curious like that inner child. Ask what if, or notice something as if you're seeing it for the first time. get out in nature and just notice the grass and how it moves, and ask yourself a question about, like, I wonder why when the wind blows, the grass moves this way. Like, just be curious and ask a ton of questions. A ton of questions. Another thing we can do is take small pauses. Spend 5 minutes a day noticing your surroundings. Hear the wind, smell the fresh hay, feel the ground under your boots, touch your reins, pet your horse, smell your horse. Horses smell great. Stop and smell the horses. And if 5 minutes feels like too long to do this, do it for 1 minute, do it for 30 seconds, do it for a small chunk of time, and then build up. But just notice. Use your 5 senses. God gave you 5 senses for a reason, and it was so that you could use them. Another thing you can do is implement a mindfulness exercise, like laying on the grass and watching the clouds, or focusing on a sound, like a bird, which it's getting to the time of year where you don't want to lay on the grass if you're in my area because of sandburrs and because it's going to be cold and there aren't many birds singing. So maybe listen to the hum of the tractor. Maybe just feel the cold against your face. Just focus on something and notice all that you can notice about it. Another thing that we can do, rather than tapping into, say, our inner child, is tap into our actual children that we created. Engage with their observations. So next time your kid points out something like, Mom, there's a wild onion, stop and take it in with them. Oh my gosh, that's so cool, buddy. Do you think that wild onions taste like onions that we get at the store that we grow in the garden? Let your kids remind you how it is to see the world. Like, I know some people are like, see the world through the eyes of a child, but seriously, see the world through the eyes of a child, because there's so much that we miss. So much cool, beautiful, inspiring stuff that we miss because we've been taught out of our awareness and mindfulness. So those are some ways that we can revive or reclaim our awareness and be more mindful. But then also we can do some things to help foster mindfulness in our children, or promote rather than poo-poo. One of those things is to celebrate their awareness. When your kid notices something, affirm it. Or any kid for that matter. It doesn't have to just be your kid. Ask, what do you think about that? Or what else do you see? Or how do you suppose that works? What are your thoughts about this thing? Another thing we can do is model mindfulness. Share how you take pauses and invite them to join in. I'm going to take a minute here and I am just going to take in the sky. Or I am going to take a pause and feel this grass. I'm going to pick this grass and feel it in my hands. I'm going to notice the smell of it. Just model mindfulness for them. Or if you see something like a wild onion, hey, did you see that wild onion? Did you see that deer? There's so many things, especially on the ranch, that we could take in and share with our kids and or our spouse or brothers, whoever you're with. Model mindfulness. Then create shared moments. So play a noticing game during a walk. This kind of reminds me of the game that we used to play when I was a kid on long trips with my grandparents. We play the license plate game. And it was trying to find license plates from all 50 states. Or we would play like letter game where you got a letter and then you had to find something that started with that letter along the roadside. Play a noticing game on a walk, on a ride, in the tractor, in the car, on long trips. Take turns pointing out sights and sounds or smells. I was going to make a joke there about being in a tractor cab with smells, but I'll refrain. Because by nurturing their awareness, we're giving them a gift that they won't lose as easily as we did. And even though we've lost it, it's not completely gone. We can get it back. So today we have talked about how kids are naturally mindful and how sometimes we poo-poo it out of them over time. Unintentionally, it's not intentional. So don't beat yourself up over it. It's just, it happens. And once we notice it, then we can make change. By being curious and taking pauses and noticing small details, that's how we make change. And by nurturing mindfulness in kids, we can ensure that they keep their gift and remind us of ours. So this week, try to notice the world around you as if you're a kid. Share what you discover with me on Instagram. I would love to know. I'll be sharing it in my stories also, so we can have a little mindfulness party over on the gram. Mindfulness, again, it's not about being perfect. It's not a goal to strive for. It's about being present. To quote Ellen J. Langer from her book, Mindfulness, great book, by the way. Mindfulness lets us see things in a new light and believe in the possibility of change. That's something that we all had as kids. There was a sense of wonder and curiosity. It was just, wow, the world for the first time. So let's find our way back to that. Until next time, draw good movement. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.